All right, and we're recording. So my guest today is Tim Reedy of TDR Training. Tim Reedy is a range master certified instructor at the master level. He is also a uh, he's also a competitive shooter, mostly focusing on IDPA, but also dabbling in USPSA and Steel Challenge. Uh, Motorcycle enthusiast, and also um, I think you're the only person I've ever seen that wears kilts to shooting classes, and I think that's awesome. Tim, thanks so much for coming on with us today.
It's my pleasure. It's an honor to be asked. And when you asked what I was passionate about earlier, I forgot to mention that I am a passionate kilt wearer. I uh, I I cannot speak too highly as to the comfort and freedom of wearing a kilt. It's if you haven't done it, it's highly recommended.
All right. Yeah, so we're gonna get into the shooty stuff here in just a second,
Mhm.
but I wanna hear more about these kilts.
Mm.
Like what brings you into kilts?
So it started off at Renaissance festivals. Oh gosh, I don't know, 15 years ago or so. We'd go to the Texas Renaissance Festival during the Highland Fling, and I saw the guys in kilts, and the guys in kilts would walk by, and all the women would go, "Ooh," and I thought, "Huh, okay, I like that response." So I wound up buying a kilt there. First, my sweetheart bought the material, and we just kind of made one that was pretty rudimentary. But shortly after that, I started buying kilts, and I wore them at Ren Fests. And in 2017, I think it was, I first wore a kilt to TacCon and had a great time wearing a kilt at TacCon. And then, so I wore them for shooting matches and TacCons and occasionally out in public, but not very often. And then COVID hit. And at home, I just wore nothing but kilts for a month. And then I tried to put on pants. And after 5 minutes, I said, never again. All my pants went into a box, and it's just all kilts all the time now. And I couldn't be happier.
Does it when it gets cold outside,
Mhm.
do you feel any discomfort or anything like that?
I I'm one of those people. As long as my core is warm, my torso's warm, everything's okay. I really, at 40-mile-an-hour winds and 40 degrees gets a little chilly, but less than that, it's fine.
You're also extremely competent with a handgun from concealment in a kilt. So, how do you even pull that off? Like, what's your secret?
Well, a lot of it is getting instruction from some of the best folks out there. I've spent, let's see, I think at my last tally, I'm around roughly 1,100 hours of formal instruction. Starting off with the folks at Thunder Ranch, that was Clint Smith was my first exposure to real professional handgun training. I went through his defensive handgun one twice, once with a friend and once with my sweetheart. And then I went through defensive handgun two, and then team tactics with my friend, and then I'm sorry, team tactics with my sweetheart, and then urban rifle with some friends, and learned a lot from him. And it was actually on the deck at Thunder Ranch in my first defensive handgun one class that I was watching the AIs and the instructors out there working with people and seeing the results, and I thought, man, that is so great. I wonder if I could do that someday. And I just kind of started working gradually towards that goal, and here I am.
So, what brought you into the whole shooting space to begin with? Like,
Okay, so that's a less pleasant story. Back in high school, a couple of dear friends of mine and I, not and I, a couple of dear friends of mine were saying a romantic goodbye on a secluded golf course just before one of them went overseas for the summer, and the guy had a cast on up to his hip, so he was effectively, a cripple. And they're out there just smooching under a tree on the golf course, and a guy with a knife walked by and said, "Hey, pretty guy. Hey, pretty girl." And I'll stop the story right there, but you can imagine what happened. Neither of them came out with any major physical injuries or anything, but the emotional scarring from that was pretty serious. And when I heard of that, I was outraged and saddened. And I thought, what can be done to keep that from happening to good people? And that kind of got me started reading Mas Ayub's books, and just looking more into it. And so it's just been kind of a passion to make sure that good people are able to protect themselves from bad people, and anything I can do to help them on their journey is my goal.
That's pretty you're pretty far along that goal. TDR training, I've heard nothing but great things about it. One of the largest range master instructor cadres that I've heard of. I think the only rivals would probably be what was it? So Apache Solutions.
Mhm.
I'd like to think that Top Gun Memphis is somewhere up there, maybe top three.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Top Gun, you guys have got some absolutely great crews and great facility, and yeah, you are what we aspire to be.
So let's see. So TDR training. Let's see. Who are some of the guys that TDR training would host? Like we talked before we started recording. We talked a little bit about citizens defense research with
Mhm,
John Johnston, Melody Lauer, Chris Seipert.
mhm,
Um, there's some and those guys are phenomenal to learn from.
mhm,
Daggum. I like John Johnston's on my list. I want to train with that guy.
mhm.
Um, let's see. Who are some other guys that you host out there at TDR training?
Okay, Brian Hill is one of our regulars as well. I've hosted Brian here twice before for multi-day, either multi-single day classes or multi-day classes. And I am so looking forward to this spring. We're hosting Brian for his deliberate coaching class out here. And a lot of my Rangemaster certified folks and other folks are coming to take his deliberate coaching class because he's just, Brian is one of the absolute best shooters, best teachers, coaches I've ever met. And he's also one of the reasons why I am shooting at the level I am in his last class. Was it here? Last class or the class before? In any case, in one of his recent classes here, um, I just at the end of that class, 2 days training with him, and I was shooting at a higher level than I ever had in my life. And I've done my best to keep to hang on to what he was teaching me there. And of course, we all slide back a little bit, but yeah, Brian is phenomenal. So he's one of the folks I'm looking forward to hosting. John Murphy is coming back. I hosted him last, I think, Labor Day weekend for his street encounters, and I'm bringing him back on the same weekend this year for street encounters. I've got Tom Givens for his master instructor class. And then one of my absolute favorite group of people, Tiffany Johnson and Akil Kadir. I'm hosting them in November. On Friday, we're doing a 1 day defensive handgun class, and then Saturday and Sunday is their 2 day gateway instructor course. And I've got a bunch of folks interested in that as well. So, I learn everything. I'm sorry, I learn something every time I hear Tiffany and Akil talk, and I can't wait to have them down here.
Man, Og and Tiff. I want to get them on the show too. I got to write that down.
Mhm.
So, um, so you mentioned a lot of instructors that I would consider mentors, like Og and Tiff. They're Akil Kadir and Tiffany Johnson. They're mentors of mine. Like
Mhm.
they were one of the first instructors that showed me what a quality instructor looked like.
Mhm.
And even now, they're still the example that I strive to emulate.
Mhm.
Same thing with Brian Hill. Like he is one of the best diagnosticians and one of the best kinesthetic coaches that I've
Mhm.
seen.
Yes.
And there's a lot that I want to learn from him. And I've had similar experiences. So, as far as mentors go, like what kind of mentors would you say that you have, and how has that affected your mentorship of others?
Gotcha. So, Clint Smith was my first exposure to professional firearms training, and his talks on mindset, just his ability to control a range, and his pithy sayings were a huge influence on me. I know people like to sometimes make fun of "keep your booger hook off the bang switch," but having heard it from Clint's lips many times on the range, not talking to me, but talking to others, it gets your attention. And he was a great influence. I'd have to say probably the largest influence on my instructor journey, though, has got to be Tom Givens. when I took his instructor development class in 2014. Yeah, 2014, up at the Dallas Pistol Club. The folks that I met in that class and the friends I made were, still lifelong friends in that class. Besides, I'd already met Tom before, but, um, Guy Schnitzler, Alex Kogan, Jamie Meyer. Jamie was my coach on the line for a lot of that class, and she is just the bee's knees. Um, oh gosh, Daryl Bulkey and Wayne Dobbs, Maz Ramadi, bunch of folks that are just really top-notch folks. And that class opened my eyes to what instructing could be. And the next year I took the advanced instructor course. And just a few years ago, I took his master level course, and uh, his advice to, take a step beyond just teaching or instructing and mentor folks has really kind of sunk in. And I've tried to do that to my best ability, and, bring folks in and help raise their instructor skills and get them in turn to pass it on. And I'm just trying to make Bandera, Texas kind of a hub of excellent firearms instruction.
If it's not there already, your way. So, like, I seriously like, uh, man, it's you and Carl Wren that make me want to move to Texas. Like, seriously.
Come
um,
on down, my friend. We'd love to have you.
so let's see. So as far as, man, there's some really cool names. There's some really cool instruction there too. One of the main audiences for this particular podcast
Mm,
is the type of gun owner that uh, hasn't yet shot a match or gone to a class.
mm,
And we I I appreciate the names because I think these names are important, and I think that I believe in giving credit where it's due.
mhm,
But is there any kind of advice that you can give to people that you know they may be preparing for their first class, or they may even be struggling to see the merits and
mhm,
even training in the first place? Like, how hard could it be to shoot a gun?
mhm. Yes.
So,
So I grew up shooting. My dad, my granddad in the military or in the police taught me everything I need to know. I've What advice I would give them is, please find a well ranked, a well regarded instructor in your area, and take a basic class from them. Start building your fundamentals with them, even if you think you're already a bit beyond it. Again, I've got about 1,100 hours of formal training. And I will go take a basic handgun class from Carl Wren or Tiffany Johnson or Brian Hill, and just that basic, what is it they say? Being a master is when you've mastered the fundamentals and you can perform them on demand. There's no secret ninja stuff. It's just doing the basics, and there's always room for improvement. Good instructors will take you at whatever level you are at, and then take you a little further, push you a little further, show you more of what you don't know. Because trust me, I've been doing this for 29 years, something. I've been shooting for, competing and teaching unofficially for many decades, and there's just tons of stuff that I don't know, and I'm always eager to learn that. So taking a lesson, absolutely recommended. Um, Competing is another thing. I've got a lot of folks. So I run Bandera IDPA as well as teaching under TDR training, and so we have a IDPA match every month. And I've really tried to style our club as a gateway club, to use the term that Tiffany and Akil use as gateway instructors. And our club is a welcoming place where people who've never competed before can come in and shoot in a very supportive and safe atmosphere. If you don't know how to draw from a holster safely, come to our matches and you can shoot the stages from the low ready. We've got an outstanding new shooter briefing, and some of our safety officers are some of the best out there, really adept at taking new shooters and making them comfortable and competent. And the learning that's taken place out here, we're getting a lot of folks who are now going out and shooting big matches and really getting some high rankings. Folks like Drew Smith, Chris Darcy, one of our guys. He's an English repatriate here. He's now a Texan, and
Oh,
he
that's
just went and
cool.
shot the major in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. He just went and shot a major somewhere, and wound up winning his class. His I think it was ESP sharpshooter, and I think getting a match bump up to expert. Um, but the shooting a match is such a huge part of having good training for self-defense, because people think in a self-defense situation, I'll know what to do, I'll rise to the occasion, but under stress, you tend to revert to your lowest level of performance. And I've had folks come out and shoot matches with their carry gear, and they had a particular holster, particular gun, magazine position, and at the end of one match where they shot 5 stages using their carry gear, I've had multiple people come up to me afterwards and say, I'm going to have to make some changes. I thought this would work well, and it doesn't work at all the way I thought it would under stress. So they need to change their holster, change where they carry, do something. Testing things under stress, the timer, people watching. There's no stress of people going, oh, look at that person, they're slow, they're inaccurate. No, there's none of that. At our club, we all compete against ourselves, not each other. I'm always, to steal a phrase from my friend Patrick Flores, I'm always trying to shoot better than the guy who shot my gun last month. So,
Man, good stuff. That's part of the reason why I ended up getting into matches, because your average match fee in this area is like maybe $10, $15, 20 at the most,
mhm,
and it's an excellent opportunity to pressure test
mhm.
my techniques and my gear. Is
Yeah.
that why you got into it? And
Um,
could you speak a little more into that?
that is a good question. Oh gosh, when IDPA was formed, I saw that, and it was like a way to have a match and practice actual defensive techniques. I'm in, I'm there. And so, as soon as they were there, I joined, and I've been a member for what, 25 years now, I guess. Uh, IDPA number A01570. It's a shame I am not higher ranked, but as Brian Hill, the ever consummate coach, said, he said, you may have a sharpshooter ranking, but you shoot at much better than a sharpshooter level. So just can't quite get the match results to reflect that. But I don't. I'm not out there chasing and gaming stuff. I'm trying to keep it as consistent with real defensive practices as I can. Anyway, yeah, shooting a match is it's a great way to test your gear. Stress inoculation. You don't want the first time you use your gun under stress to be a time when it's a life or death situation. You want to use your gun under stress lots of times before that, so stress doesn't bother you anymore. You realize you're confident that you can do what you need to do. You're confident you can perform with your gear under stress. And matches give you a chance to do that in a safe environment. Gosh, was it John Hearn? Somebody said, the best way to learn to be an effective gunfighter is to engage in 10 or 15 gunfights. And if at the end of them you're still alive, you've learned a lot and you're going to be a really great gunfighter. The problem is it's not really a safe way to learn. So there are substitutes for learning under that kind of stress. And in addition to that, it is a ton of fun. The camaraderie out there, the folks that compete in the shooting sports, most of them are just the salt of the earth. Really fun, lots of good-natured ribbing. I've now instituted a after-match lunch at a nearby Mexican restaurant. It's where people can just kind of shoot the breeze and talk about their performance and talk about whatever they want to, and just hang out where there's not a lot of not a lot of noise and distractions in the background.
I learned a lot from the matches, but I do learn a lot from those lunches as well. Like
Hmm.
I make it a point to like have lunch with some of the masters and the grandmasters and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
just kind of see how they think about how they approach it, how they
Hmm.
approach the stages, and also how they prepare.
Hmm.
So that ends up being a that's a lot of value in that as well. So
Yes.
you started dabbling into like I know. You're you and I both, we have that in common that we got started in IDPA.
Mm.
And just recently, I started dabbling in USPSA, and I want to do some more steel challenge. And I think, before we started recording, you mentioned the same thing, right? How do you
Ye-
like IDP? How do you like USPSA and steel challenge in relation to IDPA?
So Steel Challenge is just pure shooting. There's very little movement on this. I think there's one stage where you actually have to move in between shooting, about two steps, two and a half steps. Everything else, it's just either presenting the firearm and shooting at five targets of varying sizes and distances. So it's just basically it's grip, sights, trigger, and transitions. How quickly can you hit a certain target? You know that you learn to stop thinking about target distances, and all you think about is target sizes. If it's a great big target, you know, okay sight picture, okay trigger press. You know, if it's a small target, even if if it's a small target up close or a big target way far away, it's essentially the same thing, and you need a more refined sight picture and trigger press. And it teaches that automaticity of get your sight picture, get the sight picture you need, and press the trigger with the amount of finesse you need, and that's it. So that pure shooting is really great. I love that it is the same stages over and over again, so you can look at what you did the week, the month before, the year before, and see where you need to work and see where your progress is. And USPSA I really like because of the extreme flexibility of planning your stage. All right, here's the stage boundaries. Shoot the targets while staying within the state. While shoot the targets from within the stage boundaries. And it has a lot of creative thinking in it. Gosh, what if I did this instead of that? And movement is my real bugaboo for both IDPA and USPSA. I like to say that I move like an arthritic sloth. Years of racing motocross and some interesting knee injuries and other stuff have left me with not much in the way of explosive movement. So I'm doing what I can with that, but that also has me planning. All right, how can I move the minimum amount and leverage my marksmanship skills to avoid movement? And it's tons of fun. Being out there on the range with good folks and turning money into smoke and noise. You know, makes me happier than a bird with a French fry.
I'm gonna write that down. Happier than a bird with a French fry. Man, great stuff. Great stuff. So what kind of keeping in mind the audience that we have that may not have ever shot a match or attended a class,
Mhm.
um, what kind of advice can you provide for someone that is thinking about going to their first match or thinking about going to their first class? Like,
Gotcha.
what should they do? How should they prepare?
Good question. Excellent question. I know there's a few good articles out there on there, going to your first gun class, going to your first match. But let me just kind of summarize what it is. So the key thing, number one thing, of course, is safety. Um, Matches and classes don't allow gun handling anywhere except specific areas. At a safety table for matches, most classes instructors will have you a place where you can load and unload or change out your carry ammo for other things. The main thing is just don't take a gun out of a holster or a bag without the instructor or a safety officer saying, okay, yes, this is where you can do it. Just show up and ask around at a match, ask where the safety officer is, any of them, ask where the match director is, and say, hey, this is my first match. What do I do? They'll usually assign someone to mentor you and kind of take you around and show you stuff. But what you need is a safe and hopefully reliable gun. Uh, Most of them will require a holster of some sort. So, some kind of safe holster that completely protects the trigger guard and won't let the gun fall out. Appropriate amount of ammo, eye and ear protection, and then just an open mind and the willingness to engage in something new. Most people hate being new at something. I want to show that I'm already good at this. Um, Chris Hadfield was the commander of the space station for 6 months or a year. He's a Canadian astronaut, interesting fellow, and he wrote a great book called The Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. And in it, he talks about being in a new job, and that, same thing when you're being in a class or being in a match and you're new at this. He said, strive for zero. Strive to not be a drain on resources or strive to not add to any problems. He said most people come into a job and say, I want to be a plus one. I want to show them they've made a great choice in hiring me. So I'm going to just dive in and I'm going to help out everywhere I can. The problem is you don't know enough to help out without causing more problems. So in striving to be a plus one, you actually wind up being a minus one. He said, new situation, strive for zero. Don't screw up. Watch, listen, and learn. So that's my advice for classes and for matches. Ask how you can help, but try not to jump in and do things you're not quite certain how to do, and then be absolutely religious about your safety practices, muzzle discipline, finger discipline, and never be afraid to ask for help. Everybody there wants to see you succeed.
Man, great stuff. Great advice.
Oh,
That is
thank
excellent. I'm gonna take a look for that book. So that was Chris Hatfield, Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth.
exactly. It shows on the cover of it. It shows a picture of a guy in a space suit, and he's riding a skateboard. It looks like in space. So yeah, very interesting stuff. He's a great writer and a real interesting human being.
Man, that's awesome. That is awesome. So I asked about what things you were passionate about, and one thing that I didn't expect, but I always knew you were a motorcycle enthusiast. I wanted to talk to you more about like your perspectives of motorcycle riding because I used to ride. I
Mm,
rode a Yamaha V Star 950.
mhm.
Um, it was probably too light of a bike for me. I don't know. I'm weighing in at like 260 pounds, and my bike is 950 cc's, but it did it. Can you
Oh,
tell me a little bit about like what you ride and how you got into it?
absolutely. Well, I would never have guessed that for your weight, my friend. You wear it well. You carry it well. So motorcycling is something I got into when I was 13, 14. My dad bought a Honda XR75 that my brother and I, who's 5 years older than I, fought over. And very shortly after that, he wound up getting a two-stroke motocross bike and starting to race. And a couple years later, I followed suit and started racing motocross. So I raced dirt bikes from 1975 until 1988, and I really am so thankful for that experience because motorcycle racing, especially on the dirt, it's very unforgiving of inattention. It teaches you to be completely focused on what you're doing at the time. There's a little documentary out there that I caught a glimpse of years ago, and it's called Motorcycling, The Lazy Man's Zen, or The Lazy Man's Way to Zen. And the explanation of that was when monks are learning to practice meditation, they sit there and they focus on their breathing, and the senior monks walk around with a stick. And if they see someone not focusing their attention where it needs to be, they whack them with a stick. And the guy who made the documentary said, motorcycling is exactly like that. Because if you're riding a motorcycle and you are not focused on what you are doing at the time, that motorcycle is going to throw you down and hurt you. And he said that way that you don't have any external person with a stick beating you. It's just you and the motorcycle. So it's the lazy man's way to Zen. And I appreciate that focus on motorcycling can be absolutely life or death like firearms can. And so that ability to pay close attention to what you're doing while you're doing it and realize that the consequences are severe. I'm so thankful for years of motocross, and then I got into street biking in 1983, and I've now got probably about 200 to 300,000 miles on street bikes from riding around the U.S. and a little bit in New Zealand as well.
And you're riding a BMW, right?
Yes, BMW Adventure right now. I bought that bike because when we moved out to our house, it had a half-mile driveway that was unpaved, and it was steep, bumpy, rutted, dirt. And on my Honda Blackbird, which is a real nice street bike, it was not capable of doing that driveway easily. I always thought any bike can be ridden off road. It's the rider, not the bike. But the geometry on that Blackhawk was not suitable. On the 1150 GS off road, man, I can just throw that thing around like a 600-pound motocross bike. But we've got a paved driveway now, but I still take that thing and do some off-roading usually every few months. We've got some nice dirt roads around here.
Is that your daily driver? Like, do you bike every day, or do you just go on trips with it?
I used to ride a lot more than I do now. Now I try to at least get in a couple of good rides, every 2 or 3 weeks or so. I've got some good friends that I ride with. But it's especially with teaching now, I've got my pickup truck full of targets and ammo and clips and sticks and steel and stands and everything. And to do any of that with the bike would require a tremendous adjustment. So most of my travel now is with my Honda Ridgeline, and then the bike is more of a, hey, I'm going to take a day or two off and go putz around and put a few hundred miles on the bike.
Yeah. You ever ride to a class? Like, ever, as a student
Oh, I'm
or a
glad you
match or anything?
I've done a few of those actually. So when I took the advanced instructor class, it's at the location that Mead Hall Range is now, although it was not nearly as nice as it is now. The classroom was this little mobile home with the interior floors were just wavy, and right. It was kind of scary going into that trailer for the classroom portion. But that's where I met my good friend Warren Wilson. He was out there checking. I always go early and check out the location. So on class morning, I'm there in time. I come riding up on the motorcycle, and Warren's just coming out to his truck, and we introduced ourselves. And Warren mistakenly thought to himself, "Man, this guy rode his motorcycle to a class. He's really cool." And but anyway, so I've ridden to that one in Oklahoma from here, and then gosh, let's see earlier this year I rode to Salt Lake City for a class with Citizens Defense Research. It was a 2-day ride here to Albuquerque day one, and then Albuquerque to Salt Lake day two, and then 2 days of class, 3 days of class. I can't remember now. I've slept since then, and then 2 days riding back and coming back. Boy, when I crossed the border into Texas up near San Angelo or something, it was 106 in the shade, and oh man, that was a brutal ride. That was the only time I regretted riding the bike up there.
Oh man, imagine that, riding a bike wow. Yeah,
Mm.
man, good stuff. Good stuff. All
Thank
right, let's see. Do you ever ride a bike in a kilt?
Actually, I do. I am wearing an oversuit though. For decades, I've been wearing the Rider Warehouse Aero Stitch suit. So it's a big, oversuit that I can put on in about 10 seconds, and it's rain proof and abrasion proof or abrasion resistant. Tons of great pockets. It's got lots of vents, so you can, add or reduce ventilation. And I'm on my second Aero Stitch suit. My first one, I put about 115,000 miles on it, and then for some reason it shrank and it didn't fit so well anymore. Anyway, actually, it was I put on a few pounds, and so I bought a slightly bigger suit and sold that one, and now I've got probably about 150,000 miles on this one, and they're just the bee's knees. I do know people riding kilts, and they let it all hang out, but I'm not that brave.
Let it all hang out. We're gonna clip that. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Oh man, wow. So, tell you what, Tim, I knew this was gonna be fun as soon as as soon as I texted you and you said, "Yeah, I'll do it." I knew this was gonna be fun. I I just really, man, this was a lot of fun, like a lot of laughs. So what do you have coming down the pipe? Like, you got some stuff coming up, or
Well,
Oh
let's
my.
see. Out here in Bandera, I'm hosting John Johnston for his 2-day technical handgun tests and standards, and I'm looking forward to taking that for the fourth time. So when I first took his class, it was a 1-day class, and he was explaining to me the uh, test with no name, his final test for the class, and what the basically what it is. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
So for folks who are not, it's two B8 targets, two 5-inch, 5 to 8 inch circles here, and then two 1-inch squares, one above and one below in the middle. And at 5 yards from concealment, you draw and do 5 shots on one B8, 1 shot on a 1-inch square, 5 shots on the other B8, and 1 shot on the other 1-inch square. And I was like, okay, great. And what are the time limits on that? And he said, 15 seconds is intermediate, 10 seconds is advanced. And he said, and under 6 seconds is expert. And I said, 6 seconds, 12 shots from concealment, 4 targets in 6 seconds. I said, is that even humanly possible? He said, oh, yeah. At the end of his first class, his 1-day class, I was able to shoot it clean. You get 2 tries at it. And on my second try, I shot it clean in just about 12 seconds, 11 or 12 seconds. And I thought, okay, that's not great, but it's not bad. The second time he came, I shot, I had one run under 6 seconds. And when I just took it again recently, I had one run that was 5.6 seconds, and then one run that was 6.2 or 3 or something. So I'm honing right in there. He's got a coin for the first person to do back-to-back runs in a class under 6 seconds. And I think I may have a shot at that. And I'm looking forward to having him here again in February for that last weekend in February for you folks who are thinking about a fun class where you learn a lot. And then shortly after him, I'm bringing in Tom Givens for his master class. Right after that, Brian Hill for advanced coaching. After that, John Murphy for his 2-day street encounters. And then after that, my dear friends, Tiffany Johnson and Akil Kadir for their Gateway Instructor certification course, and also a 1-day defensive handgun course. And it's going to be wonderful to hang out with all these people and the students and learn and have fun.
Man, you got some fun times ahead of you at TDR training.
Yes, sir.
That's going to be a lot of fun. So, for those folks that want to go out there, how do we get a hold of you? How can we book classes? What's the best place for us to go?
Absolutely. Shoot me an email to Tim at TDR Training, or if you're more of a self-service kind of person, just go to tdrtraining.com and click on the calendar. And everybody that I'm hosting, I should have links to all of their registrations on that calendar. But I'm also very happy to answer emails, chat on the phone, whatever. I'm really passionate about getting people involved in training. Oh, and that reminds me, I'm writing an article now, but do you mind if I not
Yeah.
well, writing an article? That sounds very fancy. I have an idea for an article and I'm writing it right now, but Tamara Keel, friend, gun blogger, very, very well versed in the self-defense training world, the firearms training world. She made a comment the other day that was just fascinating, and it said a piece of context that most people in my industry don't get is that nobody is going to make self-defense training their hobby, or very few people are going to make self-defense training their hobby. And I thought, I see that, people come and they take a class and they either never come back again, or maybe you see them again for a year, but people don't come take multiple classes. They don't take coaching. They don't do matches. And I talked about Clint Smith and his pithy sayings. And one of the things he said that stuck with me and has, I think, kept me motivated to train is, when you're fighting for your life in the parking lot at 2 a.m., is not the time to learn how to fight. You need to learn that beforehand. You need to practice it. You need to make it unconscious. You need to have unconscious competence at doing that. And I haven't really ever had a problem with myself staying motivated to keep up with my training, keep up with my performance, always learn a little more. But that quote from Tamara made me think, What if you knew for certain that sometime in the next 25 years, you were going to have to fight for your life, or you were going to have to fight for the life of a family member, and you didn't know who it was going to be, or how well they were trained, or what weapons, or how many, or anything, but you knew for certain that on a day you were going to have to be able to do that? Would that affect what you do now? And I like to think it would. I know that there's a good chance I will be in a serious car accident at some point, not from my fault, uh, but we have a lot of distracted drivers, a lot of drunk drivers, a lot of road raging drivers. So I very religious about defensive driving, wearing my seatbelt, driving a vehicle that has a decent safety rating, um, and so that defending yourself and your family, I think, is one of the most important duties that a person can have. And I think it should be a hobby. It doesn't have to be a hobby you practice every week or even every month, but it should be something that you always continue to get a little better at, or at least get to a particular level of competence, and then just maintain that level of competence. Um, we all hope we never have to, but the way the world is going, I think it's getting more and more likely that most of us are going to have to on some day.
Absolutely. And that day's going to come sooner than later.
It's sadly so. There's a quote that I use in one of my emails. It says, "A year from now, you may wish you had started today." So, hopefully, it's
Man,
many,
that's
many years from now for all of us.
and that's in your email. If people have questions or if
Mhm.
they want to follow up with you, if they need to learn more about motorcycle riding or kilts, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Is it email or
I'd say email is probably the best thing, just tim@tdrtraining.com. And, I keep a pretty regular check on that, usually a time or two a day, and respond quickly. Facebook, TDR.training on Facebook. I'm also pretty well, uh, as my sweetheart says, I'm on there a lot. And then if you're in the Central Texas area, Bandera IDPA on Facebook. And we have matches the second Saturday of every month, and one on even months. We have a defensive rules match, which is IDPA like, but without some of the silliness that IDPA does. And then the alternating, the odd months, are actual IDPA rules match, official IDPA matches. So you're welcome to come shoot with whatever gear you have, and we'll make it work, and help you keep safe and have fun.
man, that sounds like a fun time. Um, Folks, thanks so much for joining us. Tim, thank you so much for your time. I'm honored that you would come on and appear on the show. I really am. Thank you.
Well, it's been my pleasure, my friend. I'm so glad we got a chance to spend a few days together at TACCon last year, and just kind of get to learn what awesome people we each are. You mostly, but
This was this was a ton of fun. Folks, if you're listening or if you're watching, we really do appreciate you spending your time with us. You could have spent your time doing anything and being anywhere with anyone, but you're spending it with us, and that means a lot to me, and I really do appreciate it. So, thanks again for watching. Welcome to Memphis.